were having a little discussion when we were hanging out the last weekend. You don't remember this, Brian?
Clearly, he doesn't.
Clearly not.
You don't?
Well, then again, to be fair, you guys have probably had a lot of discussions.
Do you not remember texting Jeff that weekend about sports?
Again, probably not. I don't remember what I eat.
I text a lot of people sometimes. I don't know that. I don't remember. That was too. That was too far ago. That was too long ago.
Whitmer, what happened? Can you just give us a brief recap?
I was just. It wasn't really a brief recap. It was just, Brian just texted me one day. That random text you got on the 4th of July saying hockey or football.
Oh,
I know this conversation now.
Yeah, now he's got it.
I still can't remember.
I know where we're going.
And you said, Jeffrey.
I said
just
hockey.
the question. Hockey? Yeah, it's hockey. I can't remember where we're going with that one. Which one's more popular?
Yeah.
Well, no, because all you asked me was hockey or football, and I said hockey because that's what I would naturally say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I want you to stick with that. All right, stick with hockey.
Okay.
All right, and I want you to argue and defend why hockey is more popular than football.
Okay. Well, to be fair, all you said was hockey or football. I didn't know what the actual question was besides that. So
yeah, I just wanted you to argue with it, but you chose the sport.
Fair enough.
Sides were picked.
Sides.
Yes, sides were picked. I want you to argue.
Argue hockey, Jeffrey. Defend your sport. Defend it.
Defend your sport.
Or not. That works too.
Well, this is kind of unfair, but I will do my best.
Okay.
You can use. I'll give you. You can make it all the sport, the entirety, like pros, semi-pros, college,
junior,
stuff like that, and junior, whatever.
Worldwide.
All right. So I can. All right. One thing I will say that at least for. Well, there you go. You're hyping up someone.
I'm the mediator.
Well, so one thing that I can actually surprisingly think of right off the bat for why I do actually enjoy hockey more than football right away is you get to actually you can actually enjoy watching a player's career grow from the very beginning. Like the moment you draft a player, whether it's the first round in hockey or versus the 7th round, you can, especially if they needed to properly develop, they have that option to go back to the World Junior team or like the OHL, WHL, all these minor hockey leagues or like
professional leagues
hockey
across
leagues.
this pond.
Yes, but then once you turn, it depends. Once you turn 20, you can turn pro unless you sign your entry level contract from the basically day when you get drafted. You get that chance to basically watch that particular prospect, grow and become like in a way fan favorite. So like for example, like for the Flyers, Claude Giroux, he's been a Flyer since day one, since he's been drafted. And especially nowadays, it's not too often where you see a player where they get drafted and stick with the team for as long as specific players do. Your Claude Giroux, Sidney Crosby's, Alexander Ovechkin's, so it's very special to see a player really grow from a young star, basically a full-on prospect to an absolute superstar. So in football, you don't get that because it's just once you get drafted, okay, cool. You compete for a roster spot, and what do you know? You're in the NFL, which I do like, but I don't like as much because let's say if there's a rookie that, who's great out of college and they, have they're whether a high draft pick or even just like a second or third round draft pick, there's not a good chance unless a team desperately needs help with that position that they're going to play right away. Like, they'll get reps and everything, but there's so much pressure for them to, to really grow into that role and replace someone, especially if they got rid of them, they retired or lost in free agency kind of thing. So
but also
that's
not
one
to
reason.
mention because it's such a contact sport and injuries happen almost every other play. There's some type of injury where you're trying to stay as healthy as possible because you don't want to be one of those rookies that like tears their ACL like the first week in training camp. Because then you're just automatically kind of down.
exactly. And then the not necessarily the hype, but also just, like your chances of actually making the team fall tremendously. And before you know it, you could be not only off that team in a couple of years, you could be, potentially out of the entire league. Now, for example, with a situation like that for hockey, for example, Flyer Sam Morin, he's a defenseman. He tore both ACLs in back-to-back years, I think, if not a couple years apart. And he played his first. He's played the most amount of hockey he's had in years last year, which is awesome. But it just takes so much work in the NHL. Thank you. But so that's one thing I kind of prefer and enjoy more.
Although that's also kind of a rarity too, because somebody would have possibly given up on Morin too, just because of
and that's true too.
One you can kind of come back from, but when it's both knees, like okay,
there's a very very small
and that was
chance
2 GMs ago too, so he could have gone out at any time, but he stayed,
which is amazing.
So I will.
So that's one.
I'll argue against and I'll argue against that aspect here. Okay.
All right.
So
rebuttal.
Based off what you said, it's just my rebuttal here. So you said that players get their chances, right, to play, right? Because you can you said you can travel between the pros and then like
juniors
the other leagues,
juniors,
right?
Yeah.
See, football has that too. They have all these smaller leagues, Canadian leagues, European leagues, whatever. I agree. The juniors is a lot more. You have a lot more opportunity to showcase yourself. But isn't the point of being a pro to be like the elite of the sport?
Pretty much.
So, if you can't prove yourself after 1-2 times, or if you can't take a roster spot, isn't the whole aspect of being at that level is to be the best at that spot on your tean,
and not getting handed to you okay, I'm not. They need that too.
Yeah, so it's like
that's fair.
A good example is going to be a college player named Najee Harris coming up and running back for the Steelers. Played at Alabama, right? And if you're a running back out of Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, you're probably top of the pickings, right? Because
easily,
for example, when you go to those types of teams, you're not playing against 3 stars, 2 stars. You're playing 4 and 5 stars. You're playing against they're like Alabama's
basically NFL ready players.
Yeah, Alabama's offensive line and defensive line is pretty much a pipeline to the NFL.
That's what's called D1, especially college football, is what that is essentially. Especially the higher schools than that.
You could almost pit them against the worst team in the league, like Jacksonville, for example. Keyword almost. But
I don't know if Jacksonville's the worst team. We've made that battle.
Yeah,
that's true.
But anyway, so I agree that you have more opportunities to travel between the pros and the juniors. But the idea of being a pro is that you're good enough for that 53-man roster spot. You shouldn't need to have 5-6 opportunities to go play for a lower league to prove yourself worthy, right? I mean, there are opportunities like that, but when you think if you're a pro, you're like, okay, it's kind of like the Olympics, for example. You train 4 years, 5 years, 8 years of your life, more than that, honestly, all your life to be an Olympic athlete, right? And you don't make the cut. That means you're not good enough, right?
It's sad
to say.
In this too,
it's sad to say, but it's like that's the line. You are not good enough to be on the Olympic team. It doesn't mean you're not a great player. Does not mean, but you're not the elite of the elite, which is what pro sports are.
Yeah.
So I don't think there should be like, a junior Olympics. You didn't make this one, so go play here. It's like the people who that's what it is. In my opinion, it's like, if you can't showcase yourself, you've trained all these years for your life. Because if you make it to the pros, you've been playing since Pee-wee, right? No matter what sport it is, right? You're playing at the youngest age there is. So that's on that aspect where, again, I'll just keep reiterating. It's like, you can go play for another team, but like you can get your opportunity. I have nothing against people getting their opportunities. But that means you're not a pro. That means you're not on the elite of the elite. Because that's what
I like that.
The NFL for football is a premier. That's premium. You can be a pro in Canada and Europe or whatever, but the NFL and for all American football is the premier. Same thing when you go to soccer. when you go to like, you know, Argentina, you do have Barcelona, you have a lot of those Euro teams out there. When we think of soccer, like Major League Soccer here, and then you go to Europe is that's what it
Europe's
is.
Literally, there's nothing better than it.
Like you can play in America. That you're saying that you're not good, but when you think of soccer, it's okay. Spain, you know, Barcelona, like I said, you know, England over there, you have Germany, Portugal, you have Argentina, stuff like that. Italy. You think of Lionel Messi, you think of Ronaldo. They play over there. They don't play in America.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why. Yeah.
I mean, and you can
our terms of star athletes coming through, you know, schooling and all that is, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to play football. I'm going to play basketball. I'm not going to go soccer.
Yeah.
Or at least that's not the first choice. It's not the first choice.
And I know like the U.S. just lost, but in their first game, but you still will consider, if you think of basketball, it's an American sport.
Yeah.
You want to go play basketball.
That's also not the best American roster they can put out there either.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's the best American roster they have, but that's the thing. It's like, okay, when you think of basketball,
but also that also just shows you how the sport has grown too, because other countries have a bunch of NBA stars now too.
Not only that, but like they're dominant. Like their team's country is dominant.
Yeah. So I derailed from what my football conversation there, but I just want to give a kind of examples of premiership.
And I think that's fair.
But that's why I'm going to stick with you on that.
But going back to football, if you want to go back to like say Johnny Manziel, who was pretty much supposed to be like the guy after he came out of Texas A&M. He won the Heisman, I believe.
He won the Heisman. Yeah.
They thought, he's going to be great. He went to Cleveland and then just wasn't that good.
Yeah.
He went to the Canadian Football League. I think he went to the AF and just never was.
And that just means he wasn't good enough. No. He couldn't handle and being good enough doesn't mean just athletically. You can't handle all that comes with it. So that's why I'll stick with the argument where Jeff says, like, okay, you can travel between different, leagues to prove yourself, which is, understandable, and it's right for people to prove themselves. But when it comes to saying you are a professional athlete,
you're saying you shouldn't have to prove yourself right away, you shouldn't have to wait to prove yourself.
I mean, you like, I don't expect a rookie to come in and take over. Like, I don't expect if Tampa Bay picked up a rookie QB, I don't expect him to take Tom Brady's spot. Or if Green Bay picks up somebody, don't expect him to take Aaron Rodgers' spot. Yeah. So if that's all the kind of things, I don't expect them to do that. Because all athletes still have to understand there's a different level between college and the pros. Yeah. You have to learn, you have to adapt, it's faster.
You just have to.
The guys might not necessarily be, but I'm saying when you have that opportunity, that's your opportunity is to learn, and if they give you that opportunity, take it. I don't think you should bounce if you've been playing the league for 3 years. You bounce to a Canadian league to try to prove yourself again.
Right.
You should be bounced to a practice squad. You should be bounced to another team. If you don't prove yourself, then you're not good enough, and you're out. If you're out,
because that's also like the big thing between like hockey and like the NFL. So like, for example, if you aren't like ready in the NHL right away, but you're like considered a pro, like if you're 20 years old and saying your entry level contract, you can go between the NHL and the AHL at any time as long as you are waiver eligible. And when that happens, because if you're put on waivers, as people know, like you can get claimed by any team. But and then that's one nice thing is even if you're a pro, you can go between NHL and the AHL. You're still a pro. You can get that quote unquote development in for like football. There's no really like other pro, and I could be wrong. Like there's no other really pro league where it's a full-on professional league besides the NFL where you can go from like right below the NFL to the NFL in case you need those extra reps.
I know there's like the practice they just never worked because the NFL is so popular.
Right, and that's fair. But that's just definitely one of my bigger things is I like the idea of being able to properly develop players and not feel like you rush them and try to rush them into. Now I get it. There should be, and you're right. Like if you go, especially if you're like a first round pick in the NFL, you should be basically not even basically. You should probably be ready to compete for a roster spot because you're clearly talented enough to be a first round pick. You should be able to give those other guys a run for their money, but there is, I'm sure countless number of players out there that, certain players didn't live up to that expectation that they should have. And, like I said, doesn't mean that they're not good players, but maybe in my opinion, there should be some kind of way you can help properly develop them into, I don't know what that would be, but that's a big reason why I do like the way hockey goes about doing it their way, compared to some sport like football there.
Here's the only thing I would say on that front is, again, going back to the college, kind of be that minor. In the NHL, if you're a good enough prospect, you can pretty much come out of essentially high school. You're 18 and jump into a league with adults.
Exactly. Like
NFL,
perfect example.
Going to the NFL, you're 3 years or something like that before you get in.
You're not allowed to.
Exactly.
So you can still have that time to
like,
build
for example, Connor McDavid, who's the world's best hockey player right now, he joined the league right after his draft. A couple months later after he was drafted at 18 years old. He was so good that when he was only 15 years old, he was playing in the OHL, which is most of the time because there's something called a special status age, or I forget the exact name of it, but it's basically you get special status if you're that good enough a player. Where at 15 years old, you can join. You can get enter your name into the OHL draft, or for example, and play with players who are, basically NHL prospects who are, 17, 18, 19 years old before they sign their entry level contract. And, obviously not everyone's Connor McDavid, but still the fact that certain players are that good enough where they can play, especially in the NHL at 18 is crazy. But, not all players are that good enough to play right at 18, but
I know it's not like this anymore, but let's go to when Crosby first played against the Flyers.
Yes,
they always had those like welcome to the NHL moments where they're getting knocked around. They're just saying like, welcome to this.
He got root canal that game.
Yeah,
from Darian Hatcher. He gave him a good check to the face. He got knocked out like 5 teeth at least, blood everywhere.
So that's all.
That was more of like a survival thing. If you can survive this, then you're here. That's kind of what those.
So that's where I'll pull into that with more where you can go for hockey. You can come out basically out of high school. I would consider hockey. You need to have more skill to play it. There's a lot more coordination going on than football. Yes, football you have to have a lot of coordination, but hockey you have to skate. You have to skate backwards, skate forward. You got to skate sideways. Got to handle a puck. Got to handle a hockey stick, right?
Not only that, you have to avoid players trying to kill you.
Yeah,
with the hockey stick and their body checks.
That's where I was gonna go with it though. 18, you can pretty much handle that situation. If you can play really well, you can skate really well.
Yes and no. So
for football though, there is no skating around somebody. You have to go through them.
You have to go through them.
You can't.
I know this.
Pass
I know this virtually because he's trying to take my hat off every time he's trying to tackle me.
I've also taken your hat off in real life, but yeah.
Yes.
This is also true.
But so that for that you can pass it to a player. You can pass. You have support.
Still,
football, you have blockers, but
you have that. I don't know how high the percentage is. You have a pretty high chance of still getting hit even after you let go of the pass. Yeah. Now, theoretically, that is interference, but
but as I'm saying, football it's a lot more contact every play because you have to go through somebody. There's no passing involved. Yes, I'm not saying there's no contact. There's no big hits. There's no risk to injury. I'm saying football is you have to go through them to get to where you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey, you can shoot out 15 feet, 20 feet out to score. Not likely, but that's where you're going to have to be shooting from sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Football, there is a line and you have to pass that line.
Yep.
physically with your body.
Very likely you can have a guy land on your leg and your leg's fucked up.
Yeah. So coming out of high school, an 18-year-old most likely is not weighing 300 pounds at a lineman weight, right? Or as a running back, they're not weighing a 230, 6'3", right? They're more likely high 100s, low 200s, going in at 5'8", and then they build that, but they also build the muscle throughout college. They learn they learn all that skills throughout college. There's a difference between, I never played football either, but even I played rugby, so it's close to the concept of it, where the skill level from high school to college is insane. It's different. It's much different. The guys are bigger. They're faster.
Exactly.
The IQ is a lot higher. And then I haven't played pro yet, or even low, like men's league. I played that a little bit, but it's not nowhere close to being a pro.
Sure.
The guys are still bigger. It's faster though. They're not so much bigger than what I played against, but the IQ is faster. But in football, that 18 age, you won't survive on a football field.
No, you won't.
You can't. You just literally won't, because you're not going to be big enough. You're not going to be.
But also, one thing that helps though for hockey though is at each level that you go higher and higher, you get closer and closer. You get prepared for the NHL. Now, some guys can handle it right away at 18, 19 years old, which is amazing. But there's other players, that can't, which is more than okay especially for hockey. And when that happens, they start developing more and more. And when they go to the OHL eventually
higher up.
Well, right. But so what I like, especially with the hockey in general, is though, the more that you progress though, the more that you actually learn and actually get used to the speed, because there's the juniors to the ECHL to AHL to NHL, and you build and build and build more, like your IQ and everything, your strength and everything, your skating. But at least in that way, you get one step closer to legitimately getting trained properly on what to really expect. Because someone can tell you all about it, but until you actually experience that, the way that the NHL and the rest of hockey just does it. And this is, obviously I'm biased because I love hockey more than any other sport in the world, but still, that's just
the conversation.
How I kind of,
yeah. But that's why I understand that. I just going, but if you want to look at it's next to each other, it's going to be easier for an 18-year-old if you say you're top, you say 5 stars, right? Whatever, 5-star for a recruit for football, and you're the best of the best in hockey. It's gonna be easier, a lot easier, 99% easier for an 18-year-old to go to hockey, because there's a lot more opportunity for you to have success there. Because again, you have people you can pass to, you can do all these different things, you can skate really well. There's a lot more going on to it than if you take a running back out of high school and say, go run against the Steelers defense. You're not going to. You're just not. It's just because the skill level and the size. Because in hockey, you can split, you can pass out, right? Football is I'm running this drop, I'm not running this halfback drive. You're going through that line. You can't pass it to anybody. You can't give the ball to anybody. You yourself have to run through a 300-pound man. That's why I think the difference there is you can't do it as an 18-year-old. You can't come out of high school and go immediate pro, which is great in hockey that you can, in basketball that you can do that. That's great. But football, you just physically, you can't.
But also, one thing I also will say very quickly here about hockey and why I like it more than football, it gives players size-wise the chance to actually compete compared to any other sport, to be honest. You can maybe argue, well...
I'd argue rugby.
I was going to say.
Well, yeah. But some sports you could probably argue, but for hockey, for example, there are players who played in the NHL that have been literally, my height, 5'9". I think 5'6". There's Nathan Gerby, who's pretty short, and Danny Briere, who's from
He is my size.
Yes, yeah. Whitmer, how tall are you?
5'6".
Yeah. Nathan Gerby is 5'5", and he played 8+ years or so in the NHL. And you can be that small and play in the NHL, and the fact that you lasted that long is incredible. Now, for football, you have to be a certain build and a certain size in order to even not only just play but survive. But for hockey, obviously, the smaller
you have
guys.
Your positions, though. If you're a certain size, okay, I'm going to be a running back. I'm going to be a tight end. I'm going to be a receiver. I'm going to be a quarterback.
Yes, but this is true still. But with certain players,
if you're like slot receiver, you don't want to be too big.
Yeah.
If you look at slot receivers, like look at Antonio Brown. He's what, 5'10" maybe? Mm-hmm. And 5'10" is small.
Yeah, that's true.
Most guys on the football field are 6'2" and above.
Mm-hmm.
So he's 5'10", not, I think 200 maybe not even 200.
Right.
And he was he's had a lot of issues on the field, but if you look at his production on the field, he's probably one of the best receivers.
No, it's crazy. But also another one argument towards that though is the guys he's going up against are somewhat similar in height and weight compared to maybe some guys are probably a little bit taller and whatnot. But when you're on the ice for hockey, you're up against literally anyone. So like for example, imagine 5'5" Nathan Gerby against what is he, 6'7" Zdeno Chara.
I was gonna say 7 feet on skates.
Yes. He's 6'9".
6'9".
Without skates, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But still, you get the point. So imagine a 5'5" guy.
Imagine a basketball player on skates.
Yeah, basically. And beat on skates.
Yeah, and beat on skates, and I'm standing next to him.
Or even in better purposes, Shaq on skates.
Shaq's massive. So I do agree. The opportunity for players of different sizes can play. But that hockey's not the only sport that can do that though.
No. Well, right. You're not wrong.